Hello and welcome to this quick tutorial of how to use Rightful Ruler, the augmented reality companion for tabletop wargames. In this tutorial, we'll be using the beta version 0.8.7, which is currently available in the App Store and in the Play Store. We will be using the fully unlocked version, which is available as a perk for our Patreon supporters, but also available through in-app purchase. To get started, you're going to want to print these calibration markers from our website. There's a link in the description below, or you can head on over to minotaurgaming.com/downloads. And while you're there, you might want to download the optional objective markers as well that allow you to place the 3 inches from center zone of control straight into your augmented reality. For best results, we recommend printing these on a thicker, sturdier material. Now that you've printed the markers, we're ready to set up a game room. Boot up Rightful Ruler and press Create Room. Start a new game and give it a name and a password. Then you select the dimensions of your table. Measure your table carefully for best results. If your table is off by an inch or two, you can actually long press on either one of the dimension wheels to change the unit of measurement to inches. For example, our demo table here is actually a 6 foot by 47 inch table. If you wish to include a deployment zone, you can also select one now, but you could also add the deployment zone later in the game. Now, to get started, we're going to want to place calibration marker number 1 in the bottom left corner of a short side of the table. I recommend using some blue tack in the corners to make sure that it doesn't move, and then make sure that the indicator arrow is pointing towards the center. Now, when we scan the marker and press set, we'll notice that the virtual table is aligning with the actual table and that it gives us handy little red frames that we can use to place the next marker where it's supposed to be. Then simply continue clockwise around the table until you've placed all the markers. Then you're ready to play. Augmented reality is still a pretty young technology in general, and you might experience a lot of what we call drift, where the virtual table becomes unaligned with the real table. That's why you have 8 calibration markers, so you can quickly reacquire your position. If the table drifts, simply scan the marker, and the world is back in place. In fact, we recommend scanning your nearest marker often, before you perform any real action. Next up, you want to let your buddy join the room by finding the room in the menu, and when he scans one of the markers, he's in the game world. You could also join the room actually by having the room's unique QR code be scanned. In this pull-out menu, you can also do things like turning the grid on and off, the deployment zones on and off. You could change the deployment zone if you like. We also have a flanking line and a deep strike line that you can turn on and off in this pull-out menu. Now that your buddy has joined the room and your calibration markers are scanned to your satisfaction, you can go ahead and scan the objective markers. Scanning the objective marker will place the 3 inch from center zone of control aura in the virtual world. And in fact, once you've done this, if you don't like these objective markers, you can remove them and replace them with something more scenic. Like we could have this tree actually be the center of the objective marker if we like. No problem. So that's how you use the objective markers. Right, now that your buddy has joined the room and the calibration markers are placed, we're ready to actually start using the app. I'm going to start by placing an annotation. At the start of our hypothetical battle round here, my wolf priest has successfully manifested the Canticle of Hate, giving the units around him +2 to charge. Now, I definitely don't want to forget that I did that, so I'm going to go ahead and drop an annotation. In the top left corner of the app, I go to the annotation mode, then press the plus button to place the annotation. I write my message, and now the annotation is placed and visible to both you and your opponent. If something should move, I can simply drag and drop the marker to where it's supposed to be, or long press it to edit it or delete it when the effect is no longer in place. Basically, you can use the annotations for wound markers or spell effects or anything really without cluttering up the table or accidentally picking up a wound marker and rolling it as a dice. It's a really handy and cool feature. Next up, I want to charge around this building with these bikers. And since these bikers can't move through the terrain, I'm going to have to make a measurement around the corner. We can do that inside the app using the length of path tool, which is just underneath the annotations. Like before, I used the plus button to place one marker, another one, and another one, and then I press the back button to terminate that chain. That's at 9.6, giving us a 10-inch charge. And if we try to come around the other way, that would be a 9.5. So either way, really. This is a super helpful tool for measuring around obstacles, terrain, and units. After this successful charge, I want to see if these blood claws are in range of this 6-up feel no pain provided by this wolf priest. This wolf priest is on a 40mm base, so I pick the 40mm mode and I place a marker on him. If I'm not super happy with the placement, I can use this joystick here to move it around. I'm happy there, and we can see which units are within 6 inches of him. In the top right, we can change this. For example, check who's in range of his 16-inch Absolver bolt pistol. Another thing we can do with the range wheel is we can long press on it to change the granularity. Let's say we wanted to know who was closer, that wolf priest or that blood claw for something like a smite. We can long press the wheel and get a new granularity. So we see here that the closest guy is the wolf priest by just a little bit. So the range wheel and the radial measurements are super helpful for things like shooting, seeing who's in range, for moving through terrain, and for checking auras and spell effects. It's a super handy tool. If you place 2 or more markers, the app will automatically tell you the shortest distance between them. Now, this is obviously helpful for a lot of things, but it is especially helpful when there are elevation differences. For example, that these inceptors wanted to charge these incursors. We could do that easily by placing a 40mm base in the corner, raising it up to their elevation, 3 inches above the ground, and now we can see that this is a 7-inch charge. Making measurements on a cool table like this, where there's a lot of elevation difference and terrain getting in the way, can be really tricky. In fact, I couldn't tell you the distance between this base and that base. So if you come across a really difficult measurement involving terrain, or if you have a disagreement with your opponent about some crucial measurement, simply whip out the app and have a look. This concludes our how-to for this version of the Rightful Ruler beta. We have a ton of new features and improvements coming out, so consider following us on Reddit or Facebook. You can also hang out with us and the community at our Discord. You'll find a link for that below. Finally, if you want to support the further development of Rightful Ruler, consider throwing us a few dollars on Patreon. You can find a link for that below as well. Special thanks to Warcradle Scenics, who provided the gorgeous new Kyoto MDF terrain. Warcradle has a wide range of amazing MDF terrain, and building this one was a lot of fun. We would also like to thank Molotov Hong Kong for painting the terrain for us and letting us film in their studio. Their Belton paint range was absolutely perfect for painting up MDF terrain. And of course, we would love to take this opportunity to thank our amazing Patreon supporters, especially these fine folk in the council tier: Anders, Christopher, Chuck, Dognar, LT, Jason, Martin, Mason, Matthew, Michael, Mike, Neil, Pip, and Val. If you want to support us developing Rightful Ruler, head on over to Patreon to learn more, or buy a copy of the app in your app store. All relevant links are in the description below. Until next time.